there are two things, Jacob, that you bring up. One is this idea of the American dream. You continue to say it, and Corey, you did too. You said, you know, for us, our natural resource, or our greatest resource is human, sort of human capital, our people. Is there some distinction between an American dream, say, and a European dream, or an African dream? I mean, is there something that is unique about America, either because of its history, or because of its presence, or because of its presence in this world, that makes it different than some of the other places that we're looking at? And let me add one other thing, Jacob, that I'd like for you to pick up as well, is the people. I mean, you talked about, or you started gesturing at the middle class part of this, and part of, you know, middle class, not just sort of socioeconomic status, but there's also a middle class ethos that we all kind of know about. Are there certain segments of people in America that are shut out, that are not a part of this American dream, never have been, and they may feel they never will be? And if so, what are some of the things that you guys are thinking may be able to have us bring everybody, as you talked about the opportunity and equality for all? So we can just take the distinction, whether there's a distinction first.
Well, look, I haven't studied that many other nations. I lived overseas for a couple of years, but so I don't know enough about other countries to really articulate what their idea of their dream is and how it compares to ours. I'm not an American essentialist thinking that somehow just by being born on this soil we are superior to the rest of the nation. But I do believe, though, that we have a powerful history in this country. And I was born to parents who had these very bad stories about America growing up around the dinner table, but yet they had this love of our nation that just seemed to pour out as well. So they would tell stories about what it was like. My dad was born in 1936 first of all, his stories do get a little more exaggerated the older he gets. You know, he used to tell me he was born poor. Now he's like, I was born P-O. I couldn't put it together. So discounting the things my dad told me growing up, but you know, you do hear these stories. My father was born to a single mother. My father was born in a segregated environment. My father was born poor. His mother couldn't take care of him. He was raised like about 11% of my kids in my city, and it's a new massive trend growing in America, being raised by your grandparents. And his grandmother then couldn't take care of him, so he was, what like many kids, was raised by the community, and it's a strong, intact African-American community. The deacon in the church brought him in. When he was going off to college, he had people put money in envelopes that gave him to pay his first semester tuition at North Carolina Central. Landed there in the early 60s. Next thing you know, he's involved in the civil rights movement, the stories of getting kicked and beaten, spit on. Then he graduates, comes to Washington, D.C., and companies weren't hiring blacks, and tells stories again about working with the Urban League to break open companies for blacks, and moves in the late 60s, early 70s to New Jersey. People wouldn't sell houses to my parents because they were black, so they partnered with another civil rights organization to be, literally had a huge court case to be able to buy the house I grew up in. As my father affectionately called us, the 4 raisins in a tub of vanilla ice cream. And, you know, so I hear all these stories of struggle and pain, but to my parents, this is the American dream. That this country was born in perfect ideals, but a savagely imperfect reality. And the story of America to them was ordinary people being willing to do extraordinary things to make real the promise of America. And so where I stand, sort of to answer your first question, is what gets me pumped up right now in this idea of what makes America unique is, you know, I have this belief in our country that we are the country of impossible dreams. And we, in many ways, I worry that my generation has sort of lost this sense, and they've sort of given into some toxic cynicism and this resignation that we have to that there'll always be streets that are dangerous, there'll always be schools that don't work, there'll always be concentrated pockets of poverty, there'll always be places you don't want to drive or go to. And that's just not what my parents grew up with. They grew up with this sense of anything is possible. We can transform this nation and make it around, shape it around our highest ideals. And working in, you know, when I left law school, I decided to answer the call of a great poet named Chris Rock, who said, you know, why is it the most dangerous cities, or most violent streets in every city are named after the man that stood for nonviolence. And so Martin Luther King Boulevard in Newark was a street actually, that many parts would have a screaming testimony of the strength and the power of Newark, but I chose to move on to a section right across from some high-rise projects. And what saved my spirit, I would say, I got my BA at Stanford, but my PhD in the streets of Newark, because I met people who had the same vision of America that my parents did, embodied that American dream. And I remember the lieutenant president that I met in the projects, that was really eerie to me, because every time I graduated, including from Yale, my grandparents would grab me and give me the same corny jokes. It would be like, you see, son, the tassel is worth the hassle. And things like that. But they would always say to me, never forget, boy, that you can learn more from a woman on the 5th floor of the projects than you ever can from one of these fancy professors. And so, I went to go start organizing in this neighborhood, and I met the lieutenant president, and I remember showing up to her with a splash of arrogance that any good law student might have. And I said to her, well, ma'am, I'm Corey Booker, I'm from the Yale Law School, I'm here to help you. And she looks at me like I'm crazy, and like sympathetically, like, you need some help, man. And she takes me outside, and she said, if you really want to help me, follow me. She takes me outside, and frankly, she takes me through some drug dealers. She takes me out onto the middle of the street, and cars are going back both ways, and she says to me, in a powerful way, in an American way, she says, what do you see around you? And I said, what do you mean? She said, you want to help me? First, you describe to me what you see in this neighborhood. And I said, well, I see an abandoned building that was used for people that were doing intravenous drugs. I couldn't believe what I used to see, people with Mercedes to people walking up, all sitting back there in a wonderful way where rich meets poor and black meets white to do their intravenous drugs. I told her I described sort of the graffiti, the projects, and she just shook her head. She said, you can never help me. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, you need to understand something, boy, that the world you see outside of you is a reflection of what you have inside of you. And if you're one of those people who sees problems and darkness and despair, that's all there's ever going to be. But if you're one of those people who sees, every time you open your eyes, with a stubborn persistence, you see love, you see opportunity, you see hope, possibilities, you see the face of God, then you can be someone who helps me. And she walks off. And so just a simple answer is, my vision of America is these resolute, indefatigable people who have not given up on that dream. And I actually moved into those high-rise projects. Interestingly, me and that woman, Miss Virginia Jones, and I paid market rent to live in these public housing projects. And she could have lived anywhere she wanted to live, but she was not giving up on her vision of America. And she was crazy enough. And America was built by the same people that saw things that weren't there, that didn't accept the reality as it was, dreamed of a new reality, a new possibility, and then worked every day of their life to make it happen. This woman showed me what it means to be a great American. And so, to me, what's special about our country is those people that haven't given up on a nation that could be so much greater than we are now and refuse to accept it. And I'll say, in conclusion, my dad's visiting me right now, and we had a painful conversation where he said, Corey, I can't give up on my country, but I'm worried now that a child born poor to a single mother in a segregated environment, whose mom might not be able to take care of them and turns to the community for help, that same child born in 36 might have better life chances than that kid born in 2006. And it was such a damning commentary for a guy who's seen such great victories in America to say about my generation to let our nation get to this point where my father, a 70-some-odd-year-old man, is worried that our country's starting to give up on that dream without willingness to fight to make our dream